Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I wanted to talk about the coming recession, and I know that there's supposed to be people on both sides of things, but I'm pretty sure it's coming. And what I wanted to do is give you a little bit of a tip on how to prepare and kind of what to do. While I am not a financial planner, I have done well financially over the last 25 years since I've graduated, and I just wanted to kind of pass along some of the things that have worked for me as I've been kind of going through this. And as you guys know, I have three 10-year-old girls, almost 11, so we're quite busy. We got a lot going on, and having those resources is absolutely critical. So let me just get started and kind of talk about the way that I look at things. And it's that I kind of look at money in three different areas. I look at peace of mind money, which is money that's around, and the more I have in a little pile makes me a little bit happier. And maybe Vegas isn't a good analogy for something like this, but you see somebody with a lot, big stack of those chips, and you see they're usually a lot happier than someone with a really short stack of chips. Then there's real estate money, and I'll talk more broadly about this than just real estate investing, buying a home, and those types of things. And then there's investment money and kind of how those investments grow. And the reason why I thought it was so important to talk about this is because we're going to use some round numbers. I understand that these are not the salaries that you're making, and certainly not exact, but where you're living, those of you that are renting are probably finding it very hard. Rents are up astronomically in some areas of the country. I understand that Miami, for example, is up almost 50%. I know the Phoenix area is up about 30 or 40%. And if you are just graduating or you're just kind of moving into things, then renting is becoming quite difficult. And one of the things that really helped was having an understanding of where I kind of was with real estate and how we could kind of use it as a vehicle. And then investment money, I'm going to go beyond just, okay, well, there's supposed to be some stocks and some bonds in your portfolio. You're supposed to have profit sharing, 401k, all those things. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of talk about it more broadly and how you get into a good situation. But again, peace of mind money, real estate money, investment money, I kind of like to make it really simple, and that's kind of where I go with things. So the first thing is, with peace of mind money, I always have to have savings of 6 months or more, not just of my salary, but also I have two rentals. So if there was vacancy for that, there are certain expenses that come along with it. Now, one of them's paid off, and I could pay off the other one, but right now, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense because I have a decent interest rate, and as interest rates rise, it would actually be better for me if I'm going to add another rental to my portfolio, if you want to call it that. It just seems so pretentious to say it that way. But if I'm going to add another rental, it actually would be better for me to pay cash for the house, like the entire home, than it would be to get a high interest rate. So as I'm kind of saving up, maybe buying a place in the next year or two, depending on how things go, I'm really looking maybe to go in there and say I'm coming in with cash. I'm not going to go through a bank or anything like that. I'm just going to buy it outright. And I'm a little bit limited right now to a number that's a little bit lower than I would like. But if I can kind of start stacking some cash and maybe the market softens a little bit, then maybe I can get that kind of 3-bedroom, 2-bath that I usually get, or even 4-bedroom, 2-bath in some of the areas that I've lived. But the peace of mind money comes from knowing that if something were to happen, I would be absolutely fine for 6 months. My whole family would be fine for 6 months. And I think that something that also we kind of think about is we always think of it, okay, well, you just have to have a big pile of money. And that's not true, because I actually have passive income from a number of books that I've written, and the homes that I have. And that's really what you want to get to, is that it's not actually your 6 months of savings. It's actually that, each month I get a check from Amazon, and I get another check from Audible, and every quarter I get a check from Lulu, and some of these checks are big and some of these checks are small. But if you want to talk about 6 months worth, that actually cuts what I actually need to save to maybe a month or so in actual money. Now, I do have that money because I'm looking to maybe purchase that third place that I'd like to buy for cash. But right now, You don't have to look at that as a big pile of money. You can also look at it as some passive income that you've developed from creating a product or service that people can use over and over again. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to write a book that's valuable to a big group. And while I won't get into it, I prefer to price all my ebooks at $10, only because instead of saying, okay, well, let me try to sell a lot of 99-cent books, which is really hard to do anything with, I would say, okay, let me give enough value that it would be worth somebody spending that amount of money, or maybe with a course, $100. So those are my two price points, where I say, if I'm going to write a book, it's got to be worth somebody spending $10 on it. And if I'm going to write a course or create a course, it's got to be worth $100, which means that to the other person has to be worth many, many times that. So they're going to get at least $100, $200 value out of the book, and many thousands of dollars of value out of the course. I don't keep a budget. I've never kept a budget. I just don't have the head for that. It just never really worked for me. What I do, however, is every day I will copy and paste my expenses from my credit card and see what I spent the day before, and I'll write a little note about what I did. Sometimes these expenses are something that I wanted to spend, and I was very aware of what I was doing. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, where's this recurring expense from? Find out that one of my kids was able to order something from Amazon or something like that, where, the Amazon Music or something like that I never, approved or said anything about. And then maybe there's some things that I kind of had and that ended up being, maybe free at first and were no longer free. So while I don't have a budget, what I do is I check that credit card every single day. So if you want to think of it a little bit differently, I think people with a budget are more like a water heater that contains the hot water, and mine is like those tankless water heaters where as you go through, you just kind of warm the water up. So my no budget is just to track my what I spend every day on that credit card, and then I also look at my bank account on a weekly basis. But I've just never been able to do that whole budget thing. It's always been really restricting for me, and so it just never worked for me. But that's how I handle peace of mind money: savings or passive income of 6 months or more, including rental vacancy, so that I'm taking to account that these houses that I have, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I've got 3 mortgages to pay, well, 2 mortgages to pay or whatever it is. And then I don't necessarily worry about a budget, but I do take a very deep dive every single morning and look, just, okay, what did I do yesterday? And something like this would be like, okay, like yesterday, my daughters just finished their tryouts for soccer, which is unbelievably expensive. I think it's like $5,000 for just the soccer. That doesn't even count the tournaments and the travel and the hotels and everything. And they're like, okay, well, let's go, celebrate that we're finished with it. And so we're going to get ice cream or something like that. And I could go to like a Cold Stone or someplace like that and spend like $6 per cup or something like that. But we spent $6 total, $4 cones, and 2 of them wanted to get like ices or something that were also $1. So $6.06 to have 4 of us get a cone and 2 of us to do that. And you say, well, you're spending $5,000 on soccer. Why are you worried about that extra $10 or whatever? It's really a mindset of just saying, okay, well, let's be mindful, and we do care very much about their soccer. They know they love the soccer. They've been in it for 3 years, almost 4 years now, actually. And it's just something that's in there that we know that's going to be an expense, and I take care of it, and it's because we all love it. But I think that the most important thing is that as you're kind of working through this budget, to say, okay, well, maybe the budget's not working. Let me just track what I spend, and I literally open up my Chase Visa Southwest card. I copy what it was yesterday and I put it into a little form that I get each day, and that's it. That is my budget. So I love YNAB, the You Need a Budget guys, but I don't need a budget. So, and I've been okay with it. Second thing is real estate money. As you know, rising rents, especially if you're just kind of getting out of school or you're even in school, all of a sudden you're like, well, this is getting kind of ridiculous. Like, my landlord all of a sudden said, that my rent's going to go up. Can they do that? And in some places, if you're not month to month or something like that, they can raise it as much as they want. Now, some areas have, like New York and San Francisco might have some limits on those types of things. But in general, rents are going to start rising, and that is really going to add to your cost of either being in school, being in a residency, and so on. And why this is so important is that with inflation at around 8.5%, you are no longer making $100,000. Your $100,000 can now only buy $91,500. And you say, well, that's still a lot of money. But if you're a resident and you are already kind of pinching pennies there, that, let's say you're even lucky enough to have something that's, making maybe $50,000, and you're saying, okay, well, what is, what do I have left? And you're looking at losing almost $5,000. So again, this rising rents, these gas prices, all of these things are going to be real considerations as we kind of talk about the next residency cycle. When it comes to fixed mortgages, again, I'm 25 years out of school, so I'm going to have a mortgage or have a paid off home. And we've decided to keep the mortgage just for the tax implications of it. But we don't have rising rents. Our mortgage is fixed. And while you may say, oh my gosh, the interest rates are up above 6. When I bought my first home, I think my interest rate was like closer to 10. And then I got it down to 8. And then, eventually we kind of got to these really, like tiny ones, like 2 and 3 and 4%. But, having a fixed mortgage just makes things so much easier. So when you're thinking about buying a home and like, I don't want to throw away money to rent, well, it's hard to get out of a house once you've bought it, especially if prices start to decline. But what you're really doing is you're fixing your payments. And that is really, I know I talked about peace of mind money, but that really goes to my peace of mind, knowing that each month that mortgage is not going to change, while for the rental properties, they actually might go up. And I'm pretty good. I'm not friends with the people that I, own my places, or that rent my places, but I am very civil with them, and we're, we had little talks about this, and like, okay, well, things are going up, but we can at least be mindful that, they've been good tenants, they've been there for a while, and not just, spike them with X amount of, extra rent and things like that. The third thing is real estate investments. And again, I'm going to tell you where I have my expertise and some level of expertise, and then where I don't. So I have bought homes, single family homes, never multifamily, where I've just, bought a place and, rented it out to people and allowed them to have it for a lease. And then, I made X amount of dollars and it helped me pay off the house. There are REITs, the real estate investment trusts, and some of those you kind of have to be a professional investor. That is somebody that has an income above $200,000 on their own, or $300,000 as a couple, or has a net worth outside of their primary home of $1 million or more, to get in some of those private REITs. And then, why even mess with that if treasuries are going to start going above 2 and 3%, if you really just want to, be very safe with your money. So again, for me, I had an episode about real estate previously that a lot of you listened to, and the big thing with my real estate investments is that, going back and looking back, that all I had really to do was just pay off every house that I moved into and just pay off the one before. And what happens is that your life might go so fast that you're like, I can't. I have to sell the prior home to get the next one. And so that's why when I looked at that first home, if I had just kept it as a rental, I'm like, oh, it's just a condo. It's a $100,000 condo, which painfully would be worth $300,000 now. That's all that it would have taken, was just being mindful of that. And I know that what I was doing just most recently was very unpopular, and it's not like I have an audience, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna start stacking cash, and I'm going to pay off my home. And I did that about 6 months ago or 9 months ago. And why would you pay off like a 5% mortgage when you could invest it in securities? And And those of you that are, looking at the stock market most recently, or at least year to date, depending on what you're looking at, you could be down 15%, 20%, 25%. And then with crypto, you could be down 50%, 75%. And I understand what you're trying to do. I understand that people are trying to beat inflation. And inflation is normally 2%. So getting, to 13% or something like that is, which is the average of something like VTSAX, which is Vanguard's total stock, or Fidelity has their own that doesn't have a fee if you're going through Fidelity and things like that. But again, being mindful of understanding what it is that you want to do with your investment. But for me, it was as simple as I just want a fixed payment, and that's makes me feel a lot better about things. The third area is investment money. And when I talk about credit cards and car loans, obviously these are not investments, but what it is you are getting a tremendous return on the dollar because you're paying so much in interest on credit cards and car loans. And those car loans are going to start to go up. And I know the car payments, obviously you had to pay a lot more recently. But very recently, the used car prices are dropping astronomically. And we're going to find that now that there's less money for banks to lend, those numbers are going to go, the percentages are going to go up for the auto loans, and there's going to be a lot more available. It makes sense to get into that profit sharing if you've got 100% profit sharing match. So maybe they allow 2% or 3% of your income to get that 100%. Yes, get the profit sharing at 100%. That's better than any credit card or car loan. But again, you do want to be mindful of, okay, am I re-getting that consumer debt? And that's why I prefer to have my little conversation with myself each morning about why did I spend that, which is kind of similar to that conversation you might have in your own head as you're maybe eating at the end of the day, or you're exhausted at the end of the day, and it's like, why did I eat that? And those kinds of things. So again, investment money is another kind of place where I go. But then, once you have that extra money, the stocks, the bonds, those are things that maybe you're looking for. Now, I'm in IPERS, which is the Iowa Public something or other, and I don't know what IPERS stands for. I just know that when I turn 62, I'm going to have a salary for life, or I'm supposed to have a salary for life. And last year, things were looking really good. It was like 29% increase. They were thinking about being self-funded, and I'm sure things were going really great. But now with the market down like 20%, that IPERS report next year, I'm a little worried about it. I don't know what it's going to look like. But 1 in 10 Iowans is actually in IPERS. So hopefully that's something that remains, is something that's a viable thing for me. And again, if IPERS wasn't there, it would be really painful, but I would still be okay. So although I'm mindful that I have it, I am still making other investments and have other things on there. And again, I kind of go with the index fund where I'm just continuing to buy indexes. I don't even mess with individual stocks anymore. I've already been down that road where I try to pick them better than the street does, and sometimes it goes great and sometimes it goes horribly. And my goal now is just to have enough for myself and for our family, and that my daughters can have the life that they want. So again, as we're kind of going through this final piece, the easiest thing to do, well, easy, I say that in quotation fingers, to make sure that you have peace of mind money, real estate money, and investment money, is to add more money. And that may seem easy enough to say, but instead of going out, to the bar or whatever, and just going out, now I actually do trivia on Sunday nights. So although I get a small little stipend, I also get comped for the night, and it's maybe a little like Vegas, where you don't have to pay for your food and drink, and to a certain extent, it's really not much of a tab. But it's something that if you look at it over the 52 weeks. Or 26 weeks, I do it every other, it actually adds up to a couple $1,000s. And, it just kind of reminds me that, going out can save you X amount of dollars. I love being an author. I love, putting out a new book here and there, and I've got 3 more books in the works, and I'm really excited about them, and still in contact with the national publisher that I work with. So again, that's kind of something that I do in a much bigger project. Much smaller projects are really that kind of November, December, where I help people with their letters of intent, and that's a really tiny amount of my income. It's just that I found that price point is where I've got people that are really serious about doing it and really serious about investing their time in it. And if you're going to have somebody like me that has as much experience as I do, the one thing I do not want to do is work with somebody who is just kind of like, all right, well, can you just fix my paper for me? I want somebody that's really going to take a deep dive into their letter of intent, why they want to continue as a pharmacy professional in a specific area. And then real estate investing is, again, I was an agent, and that really was a lot of fun. It gave me a break from being a pharmacist for 6 or 7 years. I did still do some shift work every once in a while, but really my full-time job was real estate. And as the market is going to start softening, you're going to see real estate agents leaving the business, which is usually when you want to get in. It may seem counterintuitive, but a pharmacist is a really good real estate agent because they have that background in service, they have that background in caring, and they just tend to do a great job. And one last kind of caveat I'm going to leave you with is to not let your job get in the way of your earning money. You're earning money. Yes, Y-O-U-R, not Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. Because what happens is that we say, okay, I've got this employer. I'm going to go 150% into the employer. And I remember reading recently, like, should I date in residency, or should I be like all in on the residency and not date and something like that? And I was just like, are you kidding? The whole point of having a job is to have great relationships with people and people that you care about. And, that just seemed, it actually seemed absurd to me, but I get it. It's a busy time. You want to do well, but man, if you kind of keep putting off relationships, that they never come. There's never a good time to have a kid. There's never a good time to get married. That's just not a thing. So anyway, hopefully these tips were helpful for you. Again, the 3 kind of areas where I kind of look at money and the way that I kind of set things up is peace of mind money, that money then savings and passive income, real estate money, how I'm managing, whether I'm renting, I'm buying, or I'm buying multiple homes, and then investment money, how I'm expanding and fighting inflation and making sure that I'm getting up above 8.5%. And the kind of last piece of this is that book that I've written, Finding Your Unicorn Job for Pharmacists, where other people have made sure that their job does not get in the way of the other things that they enjoy, but also they've also got some side hustles and part-time things that really add to their security, add to their peace of mind money, add to their real estate money, and also add to their investment money so that they are on the good side of this. So again, the coming recession, it's going to be quite painful for those that are not ready. But if you have taken the time, as we have to, right now I've kind of made a commitment to reducing the number of swipes I have on that credit card by 10%. So that's about 10 to 20 swipes, not 10 to 20, but about 10 swipes a month. It's hard. I'm going into the, for example, we went into the Come and Go today, or the Casey's today, which is a convenience store, and there it is, just a bunch of candy that I normally would buy my kids something. I was like, no, we'll just wait till we get home, and we'll get something, or just quick little times where I'm again just maybe one thing a day that I'm not getting, or one thing every other day that I'm not getting. If you've got questions for me, TonyThePharmacist@gmail.com. And otherwise, you can find the link to Finding Your Unicorn Job for Pharmacists, Financial Freedom, Flexible Hours, and Personal Fulfillment Beyond the Pharmacy Counter in the show notes. And I will talk to you next time with Maya Thompson, who is going to be doing her last episode here in her 5th week of her APPE.